we have the business of roles and PLSQL. Now, the point here is that roles are invisible to PLSQL. When you compile your code, only direct privileges are available. When you run your code, only direct privileges are available. This is for definers' rights, I should say. When you run the code, only direct privileges are available that are granted to the definer. In effect, with definers' rights code, all roles are disabled within the stored procedure. They're certainly role disabled when compiling the code. Functionally, it's equivalent to having issued the commands set role none. Now, why is this? Why is it you can't use your privileges? It's perfectly straightforward. It's a technology limitation. A technology limitation. Quickly to see what's going on. If I go in as, say, let me connect, I'll create a clean schema. That doesn't exist. Okay. I'll create myself, grant DBA to JW, identified by JW. So I've created a user and given him ridiculously high privileges. Connect as him. And what can he do? He can do pretty much anything. If he wants to delete from scott.emp, he can do it. Let's roll back. Because along with his DBA role, he has the ability to do pretty much anything to user data. Well, now I'll create a procedure. If I create procedure del emp as begin, and in there I delete from scott.emp, and compilation errors. What are they? Show error. At line 2, table or view doesn't exist. What's line 2? Delete from scott.emp. And I remember way back in version 7, this caused so much confusion before we realized what was going on. And it's quite simple that when we are within the code, as the definer or as the invoker, because this is definers' rights code, when we are within a definers' rights code block, or indeed when we are compiling a definers' rights code block, the roles are disabled. And that's why we cannot see it. Well, why is this? And why do I say it's a technology limitation? It's because roles can be enabled and disabled. They can be enabled or disabled. And that makes it logically impossible to consider a role when executing a stored procedure. Because I might have the role enabled when I compile it, but how do I know that it's going to be enabled when I run it? And if I grant execute on the code to a third party, he doesn't have the role at all, and I might not even be logged on. So it becomes a logical impossibility because of the way roles are used. Because roles are enabled or disabled, you can dynamically switch them on and off. It's a logical impossibility to use a role within a definer's rights program module. Invoker's rights code, however, is very different, and that introduces some interesting issues. Invoker's rights code can use any roles that happen to be enabled for the user at the time that he invokes it, in exactly the same way that an anonymous PLSQL can use any enabled roles. Now, let's look at it from a security point of view. The definer can in effect grab any roles within his code the invoker happens to have.
I'm sorry, John, pardon. How do you enable or disable a role?
Right now, there are several techniques. The easiest, now I won't spend too much time demonstrating on. The easiest technique will be alter, well, I can set role none, and that will have disabled all my roles. And if you look at this, I've got nothing, and if I try to run my code and query, let's see, yes, if I try to delete from scott.emp, I can't see it. So I'll set role DBA, and now of course I can. That's the easiest way. In fact, there are much more intelligent ways to switch roles on and off. We can do it with operating system authentication. I can do it with Proxy Authentication, where we have a persistent session through an application server as one user, and we pass that session out to many other users, and I can switch roles on and off as the persistent session switched identities. And perhaps best of all, I can create what are called secure application roles, where we protect the role with a package. And that can test any number of issues, environment variables, maybe the time, maybe your IP address, perhaps the program you're using, and switch roles on and off accordingly. So there are many ways for controlling roles, and you should do it. Blindly granting roles and letting them be enabled all the time is not good security. The end result of all this, however, you can get some pretty unexpected results within your code. So I've tried to run through in our first half hour the issues that we see, some of the issues that we see with PLSQL in release 11G and earlier. And after a short break, we'll move on to the 12C features.